basically training people is not much different from training models. AI agents and human agents, they have lots of similarities. We are training our experts right now to distrust LLM. I personally don't think that there is such a thing as complete AGI.
Thank you, Olga, for joining me. Let me start with this question. You once quoted a phrase from my article about human-in-the-loop evolution, and you quoted, "Humans are another callable function in an AI agent's toolbox." So when did you first realize that humans can be callable functions?
Yeah, thank you, Ksenia. Indeed, we came across when I saw your amazing post, and it really resonated me because you have been describing the evolution of human in the loop in machine learning industry. But at the same time, I felt like you have been describing just the whole story of Toloka. And that really impressed me because when we started, like many years ago, we started for supporting all the classical machine learning development with the training data. And these were the days when, on the one hand, if you can remember that was quite long ago, everybody was developing their own classifiers for different needs. The tasks that required humanly created ground truths were quite simple. It was like to define this is a cat, this is a dog, this is a pedestrian, this is a car, etc., etc. At the same time, the variability of these tasks was very high because there were thousands of different applications, and each of the applications, each of the classifier required some data set to train on. And these were the times when there were literally dozens of thousands of people annotating tasks across thousands of different projects every day. These were the times when we first realized this concept that basically led as the foundation of Toloka philosophy, that in order to provide scalable production of human ground truth data, you need to manage the efforts of humans in a technological way. To be honest, I don't quite like to call it like a human as a callable function. I rather prefer thinking about it as managing human efforts in a technological way to supporting scalable and replicable production of humanly generated data. It's very interesting that after this era of classical machine learning, the new era started, the time of ChatGPT, the time of foundational models, which on the one hand brought the new level of complexity. It was not enough to be just human to train AI anymore. The complexity of the tasks increased dramatically because now it was the time when the systems needed deep domain knowledge and deep expertise in specific domains of human knowledge. This is when you wanted to attract PhD professors in physics, senior software engineers, professional legal counsels, etc., to act as the source of the ground truth, to act as people who actually bring this ground truth expertise to train foundational models. At the same time, the variability of the tasks at that moment significantly collapsed because instead of having to train thousands of different classifiers, now the whole industry started to invest into training a dozen of foundational models that will later be dealing with any applications, basically. It's very interesting that now we are entering the new phase of this development with the era of AI agents, which basically combines the complexities of the two previous worlds. On the one hand, the tasks are continuing to be more and more complex and demanding more and more deep domain expertise from human experts. If many years ago, the average task that was needed to be executed by the human annotator to provide some item in the dataset was like 30 seconds. And it was so for a long time. We even had this 30 seconds as a magical number, literally hard-coded in our platform as an average time of execution of a task. Right now, this is no surprise of tasks taking 10 hours, even sometimes several days of human work to prepare one item in a data set. At the same time, the variability of the tasks is again increasing because right now AI agents are operating on a large variety of different surfaces. It's not only a chatbot anymore. It's already different surfaces, different scenarios of interaction. Yes, different modalities and hundreds of different potential scenarios which need to be tested, red teamed, etc., etc. And this is when we are again coming back to this philosophy of technological management of human effort becomes again even more important than it was before, because looking at every human expert as a vector of skills and optimally matching the tasks and the experts between each other becomes a very important part of successful data production nowadays. That's why, in a way, when you are thinking both about AI agents and human agents, they have lots of similarities in terms of, if you describe those essences in terms of parameters, they both have some intellectual capabilities, they have some skills in terms of integrations in case of AI agents, in terms of skills of using certain tools, in terms of human agents. They have their available capacity, they have their price, and balancing all these parameters in multi-agentic systems, you can basically decide when it is better to call for a human agent or for AI agent. We at Toloka are big believers in this hybrid collaboration approach between human agents and AI agents. And we do believe that the future lays somewhere in this field.
Thank you. I also remember that you sketched your evolution at Toloka as data labeling with the crowd, then it was human preference feedback for LHF, then human evaluation and expertise in niche domains, which you described, and then co-agency on multi-agent teams. Yes. So my first question would be, what is true co-agency? Can you please define it for me so everyone understands it?
Well, the major difference of the era of AI agents is in, I would say, two things. One is, as I have mentioned, this interaction on a large amount of surfaces. It's not about chatting with a model in a chatbot anymore. It is about using your computer as a surface of interacting with the AI agent, using all your tools that are using day to day, interacting with the agents, etc., etc. And second is, I would say, iterations. So multiple iterations between the user and the system. We are now working with long-term trajectories that start from one point and then can go in many different directions. And this is principally from the point of view of collecting training data and creating benchmarks for training agentic systems. This is the most important difference, I would say, that we see right now comparing to the previous stage of just creating dialogues between a model and the user.
So what is co-agency in your definition?
For us, co-agency is when AI agent and human agent are solving the same task together. There are things where AI agents are much better than human agents. For example, decomposing the task, creating the plan of a task, helping a human validate that the human actually follows the steps of the plan, because humans usually have problems following the plan, not because they are lazy or something, but because we as humans bear much bigger context. Like basically all our life experience is our context. And that's why we quite often tend to skip some steps and some stages because they are obvious for us, they're intuitive for us, but what is intuitive for one person can be not intuitive for the other. And when we are talking about scalable human operations, you need to make sure that none of the steps is missed. And this is where AI agents are helping human agents a lot. Then helping them look in a fresh eye at the results of the task performed and helping you see some potential mistakes and problems. These are the things where AI agents are helping our human experts in performing the tasks. At the same time, there are things that AI agents cannot do. And one of the most important things is that sometimes they don't know what they don't know. And this is ironically the most important skill that we are training our experts right now is to distrust LLM, is to see when actually the plan that AI agent has created is wrong. And like in 70% it would be correct, but in 30% it would be wrong. And this is the most important and most responsible part of human input. To say, no, I'm not listening to you here. I am applying my own amazing human wisdom to do it my way. And this is actually the very important source of the signal for the whole system.
For humans to trust themselves more.
Yes, in certain cases, yes. That's the whole source of, I would say, the essence of the task that we are solving, that you cannot tell in advance when you need to trust AI and when you need to not trust AI. And this is the moment of judgment that brings the useful signal to the system.
How interesting. Is it the main bottleneck for the true co-agency between humans and AI? Or there are others?
This is fundamentally the most important bottleneck. Apart from that, obviously, there are, I would say, engineering challenges that will be solved sooner or later, like the amount of integrations that agents have right now. Not so many agents can freely use the computer and some other applications, but I don't know, in a year from now, it will not be a problem, I would say, for the majority of applications. It will take some time for AI agents to be able to solve more complicated tasks in the more niche domains and in more niche applications. I don't know, AutoCAD, engineering applications, something else, something that is not in the top 100 most popular applications in the world. But again, I think that these are mostly engineering limitations. I think there will always be this long tail of use cases where agents are not yet engineered enough. And when you will need the interaction with a human expert to finalize and to actually solve the task. But within all these operations, the major essence is to decide when to trust agent and when not to trust agent and to trust human. And this is a fundamentally difficult thing to...
How do you train people to do that?
This is the thing that we have learned long ago. Basically, training people is not much different from training models. Basically, people are best trained by the examples. So you create a data set of use cases, you show them to people explaining, here is right, here is wrong. And while processing through those examples, people are training their own neural network and then start to understand the logic. I think that this is still the most efficient way of teaching.
When I talked to Ido Liberty from Pinecone, he said that after ChatGPT, they had to rewrite the whole architecture, basically, for their vector database. Did you have any problem like this? What happened to you after ChatGPT boom?
Well, for us, ChatGPT per se did not change a lot in terms of technological architecture, but I rather think that now these AI agents are something that fundamentally will change the technological foundation of the service. The coming of ChatGPT for us marked the major milestone of switching our focus from working with the crowdsourcing towards working with highly skilled human experts. And that presumed also some new technological challenges, I would say, because and the areas of focus and investment, because when you're dealing with the systems, when it is important to bring in highly skilled professionals in certain domains, you want to invest more into, again, technological selecting and attracting those people, qualifying and checking their level of qualification, and then investing a lot into building the community and building trust with those experts. And this is kind of a separate and not technological part of the business. But I do believe that it is crucially important when we're talking about people who are bringing their expertise to train AI, that these are people who are actually acting professionals in their domains. You cannot bring useful signals to the AI systems if everything that you do is being AI trainer for 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, because you need to bring the real insights from the real market. You need to be up to date with your profession. That means that we need to be able to attract highly skilled, highly paid professional specialists and to offer them something that they would be motivated to participate in those kind of tasks. So I think this is what brought the major change for our business with the appearance of ChatGPT. And now AI agents are bringing on top of that this technologically new foundation of co-agency between humans and AI agents.
What is the role of synthetic data in your data sets?
By nature of our business, we are helping our customers with the data sets that are mostly mostly purely human data because since we're working with I would say some of the most technologically advanced companies in the world, such as Anthropic, Amazon, Microsoft, Poolside, etc., just creating purely synthetic data is something that our customers can do by themselves. However, there is always a limit above which you cannot gain any substantial profit out of training on synthetic data. And this is when you need human ground truth to evaluate the quality of synthetic data and to provide the new level of the signals. That's why we are focused on mostly purely human data. At the same time, of course, we use different technological approaches into delivering those data sets. You need to be able to use the similar approaches similar to generating synthetic data when you need to care about the diversity of the data sets. So you need to think of the taxonomy of the data sets to ensure that they are covering all the variety of topics. For example, you are creating a training set in the field of finance. You want to ensure that you are covering all the major topics that are important for the model to learn about the finance. This is when at first you would invite some human expert to help you define this taxonomy. Then you would generate synthetically or semi-synthetically some skeleton of this data. And then you will call for human experts again to validate, upgrade this data based on this skeleton.
That's very interesting.
Synthetic data is a very powerful tool. So obviously a lot of companies are using it. At the same time, I think there is a common understanding in the industry that only synthetic data is just not enough. You always need human oversight, like you need to evaluate the quality of the synthetic data at the very least. You also need to develop the benchmarks in according to which you want to measure the quality of your models. And usually benchmarks, they require heavily deep dive of human experts to creating them.
Thank you. Is human AI true co-agency a path to AGI, or is it AGI? What's your take on it?
I don't know. To me, discussions about AGI, to be honest, are quite unpractical. So I prefer to be more down to earth, looking at what we can do from the engineering point of view. I definitely think that the co-agency and hybrid systems where humans and AI are collaborating are the next step. Whether it is the last step or not, I honestly don't know. I have no idea. I personally don't think that there is such a thing as complete AGI. There will always be some need in the ground truth, which you cannot get from anywhere apart from the human wisdom.
That's what I love talking to practitioners, because basically every time I ask a question about AGI, people say, well, I try to look more practical on that. And you create this whole thing. You really know like how it works practically. So I think it's very helpful to have this narrative out.
I think this is maybe both good and bad because, well, we are developing step by step and every step seems quite small. And maybe within those small steps, there is kind of a risk to lose the bigger picture. But at the same time, even looking back at the evolution of Toloka throughout those 10 years, we see what a giant path there was. But at every moment of time, these are very minor and very practical steps. Probably 10 years ago, it was hard to imagine what it would be like today.
It's a famous phenomena that first you call something a wonder and then it just becomes a software.
Yeah.
When you think ahead, a couple of years, 5 years, what excites you the most and what are your concerns?
Well, again, speaking about our engineering and practical day-to-day things we are dealing with, what really excites me is the technological part about this hybrid collaboration, because I think it opens a lot of opportunities for bringing in and attracting much more human experts from large variety of different domains into this, the whole AI production world, because right now we are still, I think, in kind of a bubble. And there are lots of parts of human economy which are basically not touched with AI at all. And it will take us some time to go from the apps that are helping you set up the calendar or, I don't know, book tickets or something else, towards some hardcore real economy challenges to, I don't know, real SolidWorks, to some agriculture, to something else. I think this is a very interesting opportunity. And this is what excites me, is to see how AI will be unlocking new domains of human knowledge, going further from the offices, further from our laptops into the real world. I think that's an exciting thing to observe.
Any concerns?
Well, I mean, every radical changes bring certain concerns. I wouldn't call them concerns. I think it is rather we are in a very interesting position where actually a lot is in our hands to ensure that this technological evolution or revolution, whatever you call it, actually goes smoothly, that the systems are under control. And the beauty of that is that we actually have instruments to influence that. We are doing a lot of tasks related to red teaming to ensure that AI agents are working in a safe and responsible way. We are working a lot in developing benchmarks, which basically guide the directions where the models are developing. We are actually building a system that allows different human specialists from different professions benefit from and get additional opportunities for additional income opportunities from training AI. We have in our hands opportunities to help people not being afraid of AI replacing them, but rather seeing new opportunities of AI production, offering them new additional sources of income, for example. Mm-hmm. That's why I think we in Toloka are in a very interesting position where there is like no point in being concerned. Rather, there is a point of taking those efforts in our hands and basically shaping the future that we want it to happen.
How do you work with benchmarks? Because, the recent scandal with benchmarks demonstrated that it's very hard to rely on human judgment, and it can be tricked, it can be played. How do you work with benchmarks? And in more general sense, what do you think about benchmarks for models?
I think that benchmarks are super important, and I do see that now the industry has already adopted this concept. Because 3 years ago, nobody was talking about evaluation at all. 2 years ago, everybody was talking that we need some evaluation and some benchmarks, but nobody knew what to actually do with that. Now already this is just a routine thing. That how we see this developing right now is that from time to time, there are some teams are inventing some nice benchmarks. Basically, inventing a new benchmark is a very serious intellectual effort because
it's really hard. Yeah.
You need to come up with a design of this benchmark. You need to understand what are the questions you need to get answers on. And that's why this is a very, I think, responsible and very prominent job to design the benchmarks. But the problem with public benchmarks is that they get leaked very fast, and basically it's quite hard to rely on them only. Mm-hmm. That's why what we see in the industry is that industrial players usually select the kind of benchmarks that they want to rely on. And then with our help, we are designing specific custom benchmarks for the internal use to make sure that they are not leaked anywhere, etc. I would say that right now, a very popular benchmark related to AI agents is Tau benchmark. It was designed by the company Sierra, I think maybe a couple of years ago, maybe a year ago. Now it is getting a lot of traction in terms of everybody wants kind of similar benchmarks in order to evaluate their models against them. SV bench is a very popular one for coding. Yeah. Also, there are some funny benchmarks, like, for example, Gaia benchmark, which is designed out of the use cases which are presumably easy to solve by humans, but very hard to solve by AI agents. It's interesting because it is super unpractical. Like you would never be dealing with such tasks in any of your real life scenarios. But at the same time, they are interesting because they illustrate the limitations of the capabilities of modern AI agents.
So you think it's possible to create some sort of a general benchmark, or it's still mostly inside and internal benchmarking that makes sense?
To be honest, again, from practical point of view, I do not quite believe in one general benchmark to measure everything against it. I rather believe in a set of different specialized benchmarks. They are very useful. They are practically useful because you set your goal against this benchmark. I want to hit 90% of this benchmark. And you're optimizing this model to reach this level. Then you say, okay, now I want to choose another benchmark and optimize for it. And this is basically like the guiding steps for the industry to develop. There are some interesting initiatives about general across the whole industry benchmarks or general data sets. We, for example, have contributed with the community ML Commons in creating such a red teaming data set.
That's a recent one, right?
Yeah, it was released in December 2024. So that's an example of attempt to create something that should be used across the industry. I think these are noble initiatives, but from real production perspective, of course, every team would be like willing to define their own path and to define specific benchmarks that they want to hit along this path.
Yeah, another role for a human.
I think that is really a role for a human to be the source of the ground truth and to be the benchmark, because ultimately the whole concept of AI is that human expert is not an executor, human expert is a benchmark.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. Do you think there will be time when humans will be just tools for AI?
Again, I don't think that we should put it that way. Because it's philosophically, it's not about being a tool. It is about, again, being the ultimate measure of the ground truth. AI is trying to keep up with the human expertise. I think we will, in some areas we have already reached the situation when the average model is performing better than the average human. And that's why it is a specific job to actually collect the collective human wisdom that would be still higher than the wisdom of the AI. But that's the essence of the whole development and the progress. But from the technological point of view, again, from what we have started, I do think that when we're talking about human operations, we need to think about human operators in the same way we're thinking about AI agents operators, because technologically, this should be a seamless flow that navigates the task between humans and AI, and they working in the collaboration. So this should be a process that does not have those borders. This is the human part. This is the AI part.
Thank you. And I believe the books form humans and humans' experience and humans' philosophy. So what is the book that influenced your philosophy for the company or in general, and that you would like to share?
I recently was thinking about that, and probably this is not the most common answer, because my favorite book is a purely fictional one, and this is Umberto Eco Foucault's Pendulum. Mm-hmm. And this is a book that has lots of cultural references and lots of layers inside it. But one of the layers that hit me recently, and I did not think about it when I first read it, many years ago, but when I reread it recently, I was just astonished by that. Even though it was written in 1980s, long before any AI happened, basically what it describes on one of its levels is the power of the text and the power of literally letters. It describes how actually the simple sequence of letters, simple text, can create by itself the whole new concepts, the whole new societies, the whole new religions, and ultimately the questions of life and death of particular people. And the whole story of this book is about, it all starts with people finding some small piece of paper with some letters written on it. And depending on how you fill in the gaps between those letters, you can think of it as a starting point of some secret society and hidden treasures and whatnot, or it can be a simple note that a wife wrote to her husband to pick up some products on the market. And these are two very different trajectories that can be generated out of the one simple sequence of the letters. And if you think about it, this is what we are observing now with large language models. And this is a fascinating power of the text that back like 50 years ago, it was a pure fictional intellectual exercise. And now we are actually living this reality. So I think this is something that excites me about the books that I recently read.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this interview. It was very insightful.
Thank you. Thank you, Ksenia.